The names of the 12 apostles are these: first Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew; James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John; Philip and Bartholomew; Thomas and Matthew the tax collector; James, the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus; Simon from Cana, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. I entered seminary in the fall of 2013, and after all these years of formation, I realized that I received pretty good formation here. I'm given a lot of room to grow, to learn about myself, to take ownership of who I'm going to be as a priest. And I think that's the way that Meinrad has designed our formation. They could come, they could tell me exactly where to grow, what to do, because I'm sure they see it. I'm sure they see my faults, my growths, but also my strengths. But they recognize that in our formation, if we're going to become the priests we're called to be, that they need our help to do it. And that sounds a little odd. It should make us feel a little odd, much like it's a little odd to say that Jesus needs our help. He says it right there in the gospel today that the harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. So ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers. See, Jesus knows that his time is short. In the Jewish mindset, the harvest is tied up with the final judgment. The wheat and the weeds are gathered and separated. The wheat thrown into the barn and the weeds are burned in the fire. Jesus recognizes that time is short. It's much like formation, who recognizes that they only have us for a short time here. They can only do so much. They could tell us how to grow, but they need our help. Jesus needs our help. Not that he can't do it, because he can. So he's asking us to go out. He's asking us to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to visit the sick and the prisoners. Again, he can do all of this, but he recognizes us that by us going out, by asking us to help him, we will grow. We will become the people that God is calling us to be. In fact, only by doing this will we become the people that we're called to be. Yes, Jesus needs our help. And so he calls us. We're given the name of the 12 apostles here: Simon, Matthew, Andrew, John, James, just to name a few. And we know that names have meaning. Names are something important. We know what it's like to go somewhere and have everyone know our name. We know what it's like to go home and to be called by name, to feel the love, the feeling that people know us. We'll see this later on in scriptures where Jesus takes the name Simon and says, "You are Simon no more, but you are Peter." The name Peter has meaning. He calls us by name. He calls Ross, he calls Mark, he calls Brother Damien and Tony and Sean. He calls Father John, and he calls Michael. We see this even today still. When a man chooses to enter into monastic life and he walks into the church and he lays down and they lay his funeral pall over him, and the man he was before dies and a new man rises with a new name. God willing, we'll all experience this when one day we'll go into our cathedrals and a deacon will call our name and we will stand and say, "Present." God is calling us. He is calling us by name. And when we answer this call, when our name is called, we will do miraculous things. We see in the gospel today that the apostles, they go out and they do miraculous things. They cleanse lepers, they drive out demons, they heal the sick. Likewise, when we answer that call to our ordination, God willing, one day, we will do great miraculous things. At an altar like this, we will take simple bread and wine, and we will make them become the body and blood of Christ. In the confessional, people will come to us with their hurt and their brokenness, and we will forgive their sins and reunite them with God. And sometimes the miraculous things we do, they might seem small, so small that we don't even recognize them as miracles. It's when we're called to a hospital room of a family or a loved one or a complete stranger, and we sit with someone and their brokenness and their pain, and we let them know that they are not alone. Yes, if we answer the call that God has given us, we will do miraculous things. And so we have a choice when we hear that call, to answer it, to rise up, to stay present, or to ignore it. John Henry Newman was somebody who, when he heard that call, he decided to answer it. He was born into an Anglican family. He was brought up to hate the church, to think that the Catholic Church was evil. But as he studied the church, he kept hearing God calling him further and further. And at 44 years old, after years of serving in the Anglican Church, he converted to Catholicism. See, and sometimes when we hear this call, it's very easy for us to say, you know, I'm too old, I'm too much of a sinner, there's too much to sacrifice. And it's all true. There's a lot to sacrifice, and we are all sinners. But we know that God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. John Henry Newman knew that. He converted, he became a Catholic priest, and after 33 years of service, he would become a cardinal. Likewise, we all have pasts, we all have places we're coming from, things that we've done. But we know that if we answer that call, God will do miraculous things. He needs our help. He needs our help for our sake so that we can become the men that we are called to be. So when you hear that call, what will you do?